Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people, where we speak about critical issues in the blindness community and all other issues from across the universe and galaxy. This evening, we are joined by a great friend of Jessica Dale's, Gabe Vega, joins us now. I understand that your company helps a lot of blind people, and you have a very interesting organization that you would like to share with us this evening. So, as I always like to begin with my famous or my well-known question that I always like to ask, who is Gabe Vega? So you can walk through your life story, how you founded your company and what the company does, and I'll interject as you walk through the conversation as I need to ask questions. So go right ahead.
So right now I am 39 years old, and I have about a 20-ish year history of blindness, about 25 years. And even though I was visually impaired, I didn't recognize and I didn't live um, very blind centric. I didn't have like a blind identity as a youngster, and the way I found out that I was blind was when I was 16 years old. I applied for my first job. In fact, I really didn't have any meaningful, in-depth blind friendships at the time because I did not attend the local blind high school. I attended my local neighborhood high school. And in the city I lived in, the blind students all attend these blind-based resource schools, and if they mainstream, so on and so forth, that's just what they do. I went the other route, and I actually went all in to a public high school. Therefore, my blindness to me at that point was never like an issue or a question or something that's ever made me different. Um, I dated like everybody else. I went to events, basketball games, football games, dances, like everybody else. And I just had a whole bunch of private friends and family around me that just, uh, like assisted me to participate. On the weekends, I went to the mall, so on and so forth. But all that came to a stop. And it was a very, very rude, hurtful, awakening, for me because at 16 years old, all the kids during the summer were looking for their first jobs. I went to go look for mine. My cousin went to go look for his. And me and my cousin were really close. So he got a job at this car wash, and he was reading me the newspaper ads. And he said, look, this call center says, uh, go interview, and they'll hire you on the spot. They'll train you, they'll hire you. Everybody gets hired. And I was like, well, that sounds like a great opportunity. Let's go. So we went, and he dropped me off. He said, all right, I'm going to go to my interview. I'm going to go get this job. You sit right here, you this interview, you get the job, and afterwards we'll go eat some pizza and celebrate. I'm like, cool, man. So I got off the car. I found my way to the building. I walked in the door. Um, we have really, really a great mobility instructor out here, and we have very, very strong mobility instruction out here. So these are just things that I do. Um, I found my way to the door. I listened to it opening. I found my way into the door, and I immediately get stopped by this older gentleman, and you could tell that he was not pleased that this blind man walked into his office. And he said, sir, he says, I think you have the wrong building. This isn't the blind center. I said, the blind center? I'm not looking for the blind center, sir. I'm looking for the call center. And he's, what for? I said, I'm here for the job. I'm coming in because the newspaper ad said, if I come in, you'll interview me and you'll give me a job. And he said, no way. And I was like, uh-oh, I don't think this is going to go very fruitful from this point on. He said, I can't interview you. That would be a waste of my time. And I said, I don't understand. What do you mean a waste of your time? And he said, because you're blind. I have a whole call center filled with computers. How would you use them? And I tried feebly and sort of nervously to explain my computer skills because at that point I was a computer programmer. I was a Power JAWS user, and and a Mac without spoken user. That's a system many people aren't going to really remember, but that was back in the 90s. And I was a very well versed technologist. So I was like, yeah, like I'll show you. Let's install some JAWS on here, and I could show you what I bring to the table. And he said, no, sir. He said, these are $30,000 computers, and I'm gonna not let you break them. He said, I'm sorry you came down here with this false impression, but I'm not the call center that's gonna hire you because he said it again, and I've never been told these words, because you're blind. And I'm like, but I don't have any control of that. Like, what do you mean I'm blind? I do everything else. I hang out with friends. I go to the mall. I've had girlfriends. I've danced and partied and went on vacations and gone to the beach. I've done everything that everybody does. Now it's my turn to get a job like everybody else. And I started to feel myself tear up and break down. I was like, I don't like this feeling at all. He's telling me that I'm blind, and he's making me realize right here in front of him that I'm different. Where my whole life I thought I wasn't. This one man, this one job offer, this one incident at 16 years old changed my life forever. I walked out of that building, I stood in the parking lot, and I cried really, really hard. And I said, oh God, I don't ever want to feel this way again. Ever. My cousin came, he seen there was something wrong. He wanted to go tell the guy something. I said, no man, uh, let's go home. Let's go home. I need to go home. And we did. And from that day forward, I tell you that story just to tell you this. That is what motivated me and gave me the determination for the rest of my life to make sure that the blind community as a whole has access to every academic, pre-employment, educational, and workforce opportunity that everybody else does. And as the CEO of Commtech USA, a national assistive technology training firm, that is what I strive to do every day. Because I never wanted to feel that way ever again. I didn't want somebody to have control of my destiny and my opportunity and what I knew that I was able to do, but because of someone else's judgment, what they were not allowing me to do as gatekeepers. And from that point forward, I graduated high school at age 16. I went through 2 years of college and got some technology certificates and um, almost completed a computer information systems degree, bunch of programming stuff. But at the age of 18, I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and I got a job with the government down there. And didn't think that government was for me, so I became a state contractor, assistive technology training contractor. I was itinerant, which means I traveled throughout the state, from Tucson to Yuma to Phoenix to Glendale to Flagstaff, and I trained blind people in their homes. And at that point, I wanted to grow beyond that. And I was told, that's not what blind companies do. You just teach the clients in your neighborhood or in your city or in your local uh, geography. Blind trainers don't go national. And I said, well, I don't want to limit myself. I don't want to limit my income, and I don't want to limit the knowledge that I could part onto people. And so I got an 800 number. I built a website, and I started advertising everywhere. And the first client we got was out of New York. Then we got a client out of Virginia. Then we got a client out of Miami, and then Seattle, and so on and so forth. And we were doing all private pay. We would have people pay $50 a month, and then a lot of the Department of Rehabs, uh, in the state of California, that's what they call it, Department of Rehab, but a bunch of other different areas they call it Department of Blind Services or Vocational Rehabilitation, so on and so forth. They started signing up and getting on board, and we just started getting contracts everywhere because of the style and training that we do, and so on and so forth. And since then, we've employed many blind people, and we're talking real employment, where we pay them lots of money. Um, and up to this day, it is now we have an actual brick and mortar training center here in the state of California. We have a great relationship with them where we get so many clients. Sometimes, sadly, they have to go on a waiting list, but we handle the unique ones. We're open 7 days a week. We're open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. We take clients that are employed who can't go to a normal training center from 9 to 3 or whenever they open up their training centers. We're open literally till 10 p.m. Our physical doors are. And we're there at 6 a.m. So we have 24 hours, 7 days a week training. Literally, it's not uncommon for us to jump on a training call at 8 o'clock at night and get done at 10, 11 at night. It's not different for us to answer client questions and chats and iMessages at 2 in the morning, because it's just the way we run our operation. So in a nutshell, that one incident, and the guy's name was Fred. I still remember his name. Fred hurt this young blind boy and made him realize that he was actually blind, because before then, I didn't know I was different. I didn't know I was blind. But once I found out that I was different and the world as a whole was going to treat me different because I was blind, my goal was to alleviate some of that confusion and that hurt and that pain and that discrimination for the rest of the blind community as much as I can.
And I'm Aaron's opinion, and I support your message. Like I was saying earlier this morning, I was having a podcast with a woman from South Africa, and I will tell you something similar to which I said earlier today on the show, which is this. A lot of life, at least my life, has been one big backhanded compliment, you know? And I think, Gabe, that's truly what that was from an intellectual standpoint. That Fred was a backhanded compliment. Actually, as hurtful as this all was at the time, and I will tell you that, let me backtrack in case you don't know, my name's Aaron Richmond, and I'm 33 years old. And I have had many a troubling experience to which you had when you were 16. I might have, Gabe, I might have missed it. Maybe you didn't mention, but what year was that when you were 16, by the way?
2001-ish, the summer of
Ah,
2001.
all right. I was a little boy. I was barely 10 years old. All right. But I also had many experience like this. I can't specifically think of all of them. Unfortunately, I've I've been uh, you know, philosophically hurt or put down in this way so many times that I've come to understand that life is just a big backhanded compliment. Not to say that I wouldn't have been upset if that had happened to me when I was 16. I for sure would have. And I would have ran out in the parking lot and cried too. I for sure would have done that. So you should not feel any sense of embarrassment about that at all, that you handled it as well as you could. But also in a very odd sense, in a very odd way. Fred was actually, whether he realized it or not, the biggest help you could have ever had. Because if it wasn't for Fred, then you wouldn't have created this company and then you wouldn't have done all the great stuff you're doing. So, in a really twisted, weird way, Fred's behavior was proved to be more of a support to you than a hindrance. Now, it was hurtful then, but, I don't know. Do you sort of see what I'm saying? How he actually, in a weird way, kind of helped you to reach where you are now?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's two sort of prongs to determination and motivation. You can garner them via positive experiences, or through negative experiences, and this negative experience absolutely gave me that push and that boost of
Mm-hmm.
energy and determination and motivation to succeed beyond where I was at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So then in my life, I was born blind with glaucoma. So I never had to become blind. I do have usable vision now, but not enough to drive a car or anything or read a print book. I do some things outdoors sometimes, but my academics are primarily in the field of international relations, and my job is I work online all day as an online English teacher. So I love working from home. I love working for myself, and I love being able to support my hobbies and interests through work. So I think you're very right that we really need to have blind people working, whether it's at home or in public. But either way, the blind person needs to be working either way. And so that's what I do. I'm a bilingual person. And I got into podcasting about 4 years ago, Gabe, because I really want to provide an experience, a positive experience for other blind people where they can come up to my microphone and share what's really on their mind and share beautiful stories like the one you just told. So, that's kind of where the origin of Varen's opinion came from. But I think this is very, very fascinating. So, let's walk through Commtech, USA again, right? So let's kind of walk through the nuts and bolts. You painted a beautiful picture, but let's really break down the ingredients. So let's start with the training end. So how does training work at whether it's online training or in-person training? Exactly how does training work in your company? How do you run the company?
So training, at least with the Department of Rehab here in California, it starts off with assessments. We get a client, we get their case notes. It's kind of like a what you would do at like a residential training center, except we don't lodge people. So we set a schedule. Um, we take assessments, meaning where are you at right now? What is your employment goal, uh, and or academic goal, and what can we do to get you there? What supports can we put in place to get you there? And the way that's done is you go through a 10-hour process where you show the client every tool that is available to them. And we are not a nonprofit. We're a for-profit corporation, and therefore we have the money to purchase our own equipment. We have no limits and resources in that matter. Therefore, we purchase every blind technology out there so that we could demonstrate unbiasedly, uh, the technologies that are available to you that we could then train you on in order for you to reach your academic and or employment goal. Um, and what I mean by that is a lot of blind training centers, at least here in California, they're iPhone centric, they're Apple centric. And not that I'm not an Apple fanboy. I was up at 5 this morning to pre-order my Apple Watch 10, and I'm gonna go next Friday, and I'm gonna actually go get my iPhone 16 Pro. So I do I am an Apple fanboy. But with that being said, we have Braille note takers, the Braille Sense 6 and the Braille Note Touch Plus. We have Braille displays like the Braille Edge and the Braille 20X and the Chameleon and so on and so forth. We have Android, lots of Android devices, Android tablets and Android phones. Um, and then we also have a bunch of Apple stuff. We have Windows computers, we have Mac computers, we have no skin in this. And our trainers are all cross trained, meaning if you want to learn Android, we'll assign you to a trainer that does Android. If you want to learn Braille only with no speech, we'll assign you to a trainer that does that. So, you know, do a lot of blind people use iPhones? Yeah, but I think somewhat that's sort of because that's how trainers train these days. And a lot of the reasons why we get um, a lot of the clients that we do is because we are the only Android trainers out here. We are the only Zoom text trainers out here. We are the only Mac trainers out here. So because a lot of blind people they're sort of forced into this JAWS box. And again, I'm a JAWS scripter, so I'm not like a JAWS hater or NVDA hater. I'm personally certified in JAWS, NVDA, and Zoom text. Therefore, I teach it all. But if somebody comes in because maybe they were sighted their whole life, and getting back to the assessment, I know it sounds like I sidetracked a little, but getting back to the assessment, if somebody comes in and says, hey, you know what, I'm a high partial, I use a Mac, I know my vision is unstable, so I'm probably going to have to learn VoiceOver or Zoom, which is the magnification on the Mac. We're not going to immediately jump and say, well, in the workforce and employers, blah, 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 Windows and JAWS is your best operations. We don't do that. If your entire life you were using a Mac and that's what you know and that's how you compute and that's what you used at your last employer before you went blind, well, guess what? We're going to continue that journey because it would be unfair. It would be a disservice to the client to say, hey, you know what? Let's turn your life upside down. Even though you're dealing with the mental stresses and copings of going blind, let's give you a curveball and a learning curve and force you to learn a system that you never used before and a different vernacular from VoiceOver or Zoom or Mac, and let's teach you JAWS. That's not fair, and that's an absolute injustice and disservice to an Apple or Mac user. And same thing for Android people. If a client comes in and they have the brand new Samsung S24 Ultra and they've been using it, but they just need some training on TalkBack or navigation or accessibility Android. I've seen with my own ears uh, blind centers say, hey, you know what? We don't have anybody that teaches Android, so let's just have the state buy you an iPhone and teach you VoiceOver. And it's like, wait a minute, that's not fair. That's a disservice. Just because your trainers don't know this doesn't mean that you have to change the client. Your trainer should keep up with technology, both mainstream and assistive. And if they call themselves and portray themselves to be trainers, they should have the ability to train the client and convey the information where they're at. And that's what the 10-hour assessment we perform does, is it shows them all of the equipment available to them, all of the software available to them, OpenBook, Kurzweil, Pearl cameras with JAWS, NVDA and JAWS, VoiceOver NVDA and JAWS. If they have vision, we don't try and stick them on JAWS because if you have usable vision where you can at least, we like to go up to about 8x. 8x is kind of what we recommend. If your magnification level is past 8x, you got to kind of start pondering whether you're going to experience eye fatigue or dry eye or something like that, where you're sort of using your vision, but it's becoming like a strain and a task and it's no longer productive or fruitful. Then we start kind of asking you if Zoom text is really comfortable. Not that you can't do it, but is it comfortable to use on a prolonged basis? But again, I've seen situations where because all they have is blind trainers and all the blind trainer knows is JAWS and they've never seen a screen before. Oh, well, let's stick you on JAWS. It's just like Zoom text and you'll be okay and you'll learn how to use your ears because eventually you're going to go blind anyways. So let's just stick you on JAWS right now. And they blame the client's condition and they try and say, okay, well, we're doing it for you. We're doing it for your future. But that's not okay because if a sighted magnification user has stable partial vision, then you want them, we encourage them greatly to maintain the use of that vision in order to continue their computer use. And that's another thing that sets us apart from other training centers. So after we perform the 10-hour assessment and they make all their choices, do you want to use JAWS? Yeah, okay, fine. Let's tell the state to get you JAWS with an SMA for 2 years, 3 years. You want to use NVDA if that's what you feel you're comfortable with, or that's what you're used to because that's what you've used, for the past 5 years. Let's stick with NVDA. We'll just tell the state to get you a new laptop. Braille, you're into Braille? Okay, let's sit down and talk about it. So we put you through a bunch of Braille tests and a bunch of Braille skills, and we see if you can type, we see if you can read, we see, what your productivity is in reading and writing and typing in Braille. We put you on talking typing teacher and we look at your typing skills, how many words per minute accuracy, We look at all those numbers. We want you to be 35 words a minute, which is your standard like office clerical speed, anywhere between 35 and 40. We want you to be 95% accurate and less than 5 mistakes. So these are actual numbers while we train you during our assistive technology training, which could be anywhere from 3 months to 9 months. But these are numbers and goals that and milestones that we intend to hit. And we document it. We provide all this information to the Department of Rehab. And we also teach you Word, but we just don't teach you the basic stuff. Again, that's what other people do. Oh, let's teach you how to bold and underline and select stuff and maybe put a bullet or two and everything's okay. But that's not what we do. What we do is we teach you Word from top to bottom. We teach you how to do heading styles. We teach you how to write a professional letter. We teach you how to make bullet lists, outline lists, subheadings, headings up to level 3. We teach you how to insert graphics into your Word document that represent the subject matter that you write about. Um, on Word alone, we probably spend about 20 hours on Word teaching you the ins and outs. And the reason why is because I don't want people to believe that blind people can only write plain text, left justified, all in whatever standard 12-point font. Because to me, as a former, visual person, that looks ugly and it looks very unprofessional and it doesn't, represent the blind at all in a very good light if they can't write a formatted document. So, we really do. We teach them how to research on Google and paste links in Word so that they could, refer out and make resource lists and so on and so forth. And we do the same thing with Excel. We teach them how to do rows and columns of data and how those rows and columns, relate. We spend another 20 hours on that. And with PowerPoint, we teach them how to write real live slideshows, like where you could go and you could basically go out and do a pitch deck where you're telling people, hey, this is my presentation. It's 8 slides long. I'm going to talk to you about this. And they show their title. I'm going to talk to you about that. And they show an image with the title, with some content, with some bullet points, with some links out to some resources and a conclusion slide. And beyond that, we teach them what web browsing is and how to do efficient web browsing. I mean, instead of just tabbing 45 times, I mean, what is a better way to get to that link or that phrase or that area of the web page you're looking for? Because the one thing that people don't realize is that when I look at someone web browse, I could tell whether they had a good trainer, a bad trainer. I could tell whether they had any training at all based on what keys they press. I see a lot of people, for lack of a better word, blindly pressing tab and enter, tab and enter, tab and enter. I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, what's the point of all that? And they're in File Explorer, just tabbing around in big circles, tab, 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 tab. And they say, oh, I can't find it. Well, that's because that's not how you navigate that area. You're not supposed to press tab. In that area, you're supposed to press up and down. In the tree view, you're supposed to press up, down, and right arrow to expand and collapse the tree view and tab over one time to the file viewer and up and down through that. And when you find your file you're looking for, you press enter. And but a lot of blind people, they really do tab fanatically all over their computer. And I think it's because they're not taught appropriately that you have to orient yourself to wherever you're at, whatever screen, whatever application, whatever window you're in, and understand what that window is made of, what kind of controls, what these controls do. What is a tree view? What is a list view? What is a file view? What is a toolbar? What does a toolbar look like? Toolbars go sideways. They go horizontal. And it would probably be better if you arrow through them rather than tap through them. And a tree view, you can't tap through a tree view, so you have to arrow through those up and down. And since toolbars are horizontal, that means left and right. So these are the things that you just have to explain to people very clearly so that they can get a clear understanding of what they're working on. And the one thing that we also don't do is we also don't teach in steps. I never say, hey, step one is do this, step two is do that, step three is do that, and step four is going to get you where you need to be. Because a computer experience is so fluid, meaning everything's so dynamic, that if I teach you step one through four, but step two doesn't work, then everything falls apart. And then you don't know what to do. You don't know where to go. You don't know how to get to that step three and four because step two got you up against a brick wall. So then what do? What you do is you learn the concept. Okay, why are we pressing the Windows key to go to the search box? Why are we typing in out for Outlook? What are we listening for once we hear the word Outlook app and then we press enter? If we go to Word, for example, what is the backstage view? What is it presenting us with? What happens if it doesn't say blank document or document one or edit box? That's called us teaching you the concepts and you understanding those concepts before we move on to any further steps.
That's wonderful that you teach in that way. I will tell you that I'm someone who is a technophobe. I was basically had many years of incredibly good teaching when I got an incredible teacher of the visually impaired when I was in the fifth grade, and she taught me all the way through the 11th grade, and then she moved. Um, but to make a long story short, or a short story longer, as I tend to do, Gabe, you're 100% correct that blind people, it seems to me, and now that I'm someone who has some skills with my iMac here, as I'm using now, I do notice consistently that blind people have a spectrum of skills that they have. And it seems like that there's a tremendous spectrum of quality of technical education for the blind, to blind people. And I think, as you know, and you would probably agree, that this can be a huge trauma for blind people, especially once you get into your teen years and you notice that you're kind of behind the curve.
Mm-hmm.
I just basically what I'm saying is thank you for teaching people this knowledge in the way that you do, because you're helping blind people to get the knowledge they need and deserve in a way that doesn't embarrass them and in a way that doesn't make them feel self-conscious about their lack of ability. I was someone who was always self-conscious about the lack of my skills, and then I graduated from university and started working online and then started podcasting 4 years ago. So over years, I've acquired skills simply by working hard, not because I had teachers to help, but because I educated myself about it as I needed to as things developed. And I will say that the Apple technology has gotten so easy to use that it's almost flawlessly easy. Although I shouldn't say this, Apple, in my opinion, is very easy to use. And I'm one of these people that, yeah, I have nothing against JAWS, but I never really caught on to it. So I was never, as a child, I wasn't really easy to work with. So I, I wasn't really teachable. So I was one of those kids where you'd be thinking, oh my God, oh, Aaron Richmond's on the schedule. Oh, Aaron Richmond. Oh, you know. But you're very right. This is a huge problem, and as appreciative as I am of what your company does, which is truly, truly stellar. Um, what have you found? And I'm going to ask this question, and I'm going to kind of go to the next one. I'm going to kind of shuffle around some questions that are popping into my mind here. You know, it's great if you live in California, but what factual research have you done about the quality of technical education for blind people all over the United States? Because obviously, if you're from a state that doesn't have a training center, it's going to be a lot harder. So, what have you found about that matter, about blind people all over the country as a whole? What, I guess, data have you gathered about it?
Actually, the cool thing is since COVID, on a federal level, and stop me if I get too technical into this, but
Not at all. Go right ahead.
on a federal level, the Rehabilitation Services Administration, which is the parent agency over all rehabilitation departments in each state. So every state administers their own quote unquote Department of Rehabilitation. In Arizona, it's called Vocation Rehabilitation. In Wisconsin, it's called Department of Blind Services. But all these agencies have a parent agency on a federal level in DC called RSA. And ever since COVID, RSA has loosened the rules. It used to be where you were expected, or it was highly encouraged for you to go get on in-person training in an actual physical training center. But once COVID came, they made it to where we could start doing it remotely, and that means anyway. That means telephone, that means Zoom, so on and so forth. And the cool thing about that is that that has allowed us to get a lot more contracts to where before they're like, okay, well, how are you going to service a client in Minnesota if you're in California? Well, hello, Zoom. You know what I mean? So it made it a lot more easier for us to enter a lot of markets where we serve now in order to solve these issues across the country on a more rapid level. And the data that I find that tells me the quality of technology training across the country is because we're everywhere on every support list. So we get to see the real results. We get to see the trainers themselves, the trainers who work for these blind agencies come in and ask questions. Hey, I got a client that needs Mac training, but I've never used the Mac before. So what do I do? What you do is you pass them on to an agency like us. Don't sit there and learn the Mac and they say it nonchalantly was, oh yeah, I'm going to learn this Mac and teach the client and we're going to learn together. No, that's awful and that's a disservice. And you're not teaching them anything because you're only learning just so you could teach them so you could get paid. You're not learning so that you could have a well-rounded, vast contrast of knowledge so that you could adequately teach this client. You're learning because you're trying to keep your job, and that's not appropriate. Same thing with the clients. They're all over the list asking questions. Hey, I asked my trainer this question. He doesn't know, and he doesn't know how to get me the answers. And I'm just floundering, and I'm in school, and I'm going to get behind in my schoolwork for college. And my employer's threatening to can me because I can't keep up. That's the data that we look at. It's not precise. It's not scientific. I mean, I apologize for that. But in reality, we see it every day on Facebook and these blind support groups. And what we do is we proactively reach out and say, hey, have your VR counselor get a hold of us. Let's open up a case and let us show you the Commtech difference.
Yeah, yeah. And you should never say the word I'm sorry or I apologize because you're doing a great job. So that's totally fine. But I do understand what you mean, though. When you look at it at a national level, you can easily see what the impact of this is. Absolutely. So, okay. So then after somebody completes a training program, let's say for 3 to 6 months, what if any employment does Comtech USA provide to customers or these blind people? In other words, I understand that many, if not most of them, would be trained by your company and then go out into the world and get a job somewhere else. But I've also come to understand from the person that's sitting in the audience on mute right now that your company also has some employment opportunities for blind people, right? Talk
Oh,
about it.
absolutely. ComTechUSA.net/jobs is where anybody starts. Now, granted, I will tell you though, because we are known for delivering a very, very high standard of performance to our contract supervisors, we have a way for somebody to actually sort of pre-qualify to see if they are ready to become one of our trainers, not a trainer, our trainers. And it is a very, very difficult, significant test. And I would say 8 out of 10 people who try and take this test fail because our standard is so high. And I mean so high. And that's on purpose because when you deliver an excellent performance-based service like we do, you have to be that rounded. You have to be that qualified. And we're not looking for degrees and no bachelor's degree, no college degree, nothing like that. It's basically real world knowledge of how do you use a Braille note taker? How do you use JAWS? How do you use a Mac voiceover? Do you only know how to use the iPhone? Okay, well, that's great. But a lot of the stuff, I would say there's about 25-30% of iPhone stuff doesn't cross over to the Mac. It just doesn't. So can you interact or not interact? Do you know what a toolbar is on the Mac? Do you know what a status bar is on the Mac? Where is the extras bar and the extras menu? It's something that we pride ourselves on. It's not to be mean, but like I said, it's something
Not
that
at all.
8 out of 10 people will fail our exam because we speak out and we only hire the best. And that's because when VR agencies come to us, they know that they are getting the Delta Force of assistive technology trainers.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically your company is like special ops or special forces for
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
It's incredible, man. That is really, really cool stuff. Yeah. Boy, I could have needed I think it's safe to say that I could have benefited from your company when I was growing up and needing these things. Although quite frankly, like I was saying, I was so hard to work with as a student that I don't think it would have, I think the result would have been the same either way. But that's really incredible. So in addition to your trainers, what other jobs? I mean, I'm just purely curious. Like what other jobs does
Independent
your
living
company have?
skills. So we actually have 5 apps out on the App Store. And they pertain to this question, so I'm not trying to unjustly promote our stuff. But we have 5 apps out on the App Store, and 3 of those apps are a little series. They're these online training series of Braille, independent living, and assistive technology training that we make available for free to the public. And so we do need Braille instructors. We do need one of them is a voiceover training app, and we do seek voiceover training lessons from the public. If somebody feels that they got that sort of skill set, we pay for stuff like that. Make a contribution to us, we'll make a contribution to you, and so that's the kind of stuff that we look for. We're looking for AT trainers, Braille instructors, and ILS, which is independent living skills instructors. On staff, we have like client assistance specialists here inside the center, which helps newly blind people get into the building through the office suite, so on and so forth, and transports them and guides them to the bathroom or to get something to drink or something like that. We also have note takers, meaning people who sit in on the training sessions and they take notes and they turn those notes into documents that we could submit into a report, which we turn around and send to the state so we can invoice and get paid. Um, and then there are clerical and admin people, there are social media and marketing people, and there are uh, customer service and sales people. So there's all kinds of positions that are available through us, and our trainers start, and it's unheard of in this industry. It really is because it's really sad that every assist technology company uh, trainer that I know, they make minimum wage in their local market, especially out here in California. Out here in California, it's something really small, like $16 an hour, which is the minimum wage. But the agency themselves, when they bill the state, they make something like $100 an hour, but they pay the trainer 16. I think that's absolutely unfair. So we start um, trainers at $20 an hour, and for every certificate you have, whether it's a JAW certificate, an NVDA certificate, a Zoom Tech certificate, a CPR certificate, that's for somebody who works in person, or whatever the case may be, for every certificate you have, we'll give you another dollar per hour. So if you are an AT trainer here with us, that's a base pay of 20 an hour. And if you have all 3 of those certificates, Zoom Text, NVDA, and JAWS, that's 23. And then if you happen to go get an Apple Desktop Professional Support uh, certificate, which is sort of like Apple's base certificate, you can make $24 an hour here with us. That's $8 above minimum wage here. And in AT training, you ask anybody, whether it's from Phoenix, from Texas, from Minnesota, from Maine, wherever, what is your salary? And they'll sadly tell you it's minimum wage, and we don't do that here.
Wow. That's really incredible. Really, really incredible that you don't do minimum wage and really impressive that you're able to, when you look at that from a business perspective, that's impressive that you're able to sustain that. considering the niche market you're in. So how did you come to figure out, apart from the fact that you really care about blind people and that you really want to do the right thing instead of the wrong thing, but how did you figure out economically that you can afford to pay your trainers so much?
Because the truth is, I was once that trainer. I tried going to work for an agency myself, and I told them I would not take minimum wage. I said, if you want me and you know what value and you know what I bring to the table, you have to give me something above minimum wage or you don't get me at all. So they gave me something like $3. I think I was doing like 18, 19 bucks. And they said that's what they paid their managers. And this was a nonprofit, and they did the whole song and dance. Oh, but we don't have the money and rapport and we're this and we're that. I'm like, yeah, but like I just said, you make $100 an hour, so make it happen. You know what I mean? That's you're paying me less than a quarter of that, and saying that that's all you could do. So even when you add on workers' comp, and even when you add on all the employment taxes, so on and so forth, you're still creeping up to about on like an $18 salary. I think you pay about $5 more, and like I said, employment, unemployment, workers' comp, so on and so forth, 401k. So are you telling me that even though you're paying less than a quarter of what you get from the state, that's still too high? I don't think so. So on top of the let's say for example, $20 base pay, we're still only paying about $25 an hour when you include all the other taxes and charges and everything that we pay, which is something we could afford because um our rent gets paid, our servers get paid, our utilities get paid, our staff gets paid. So where's the problem? Why cannot we pay somebody a fair wage that they deserve because of them being assist technology trainers and allowing us to build a state for that service? We need them. So why don't we value them in that same way?
Yeah, it's really incredible. And you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think that's why one of the reasons why so many blind children start out like me without the IT skills is because the people that are paid to teach you are paid very little, and then that makes that I have a theory about this, and I think when you pay someone little, minimum wage, you're only saying that you're minimum, so I that affects the quality of person who shows up, and it affects their self-esteem and all that type of thing. So I think there's a lot to be said for you to be willing to pay your staff a fair, not only a lot for that job, but a fair wage for that job. Hmm.
I tell people all the time, so we actually do have two other agencies here in this city and in this county, and all their staff makes minimum wage. And I tell these people who come in, they were employed before, they were salaried before, they're used to a certain salary and lifestyle. So listen, if you come here, and I own, for example, I own a Lexus ES350, and I own a drop top convertible Ford Thunderbird. And I say, how can you go to somebody that makes minimum wage and say, I want to make X amount of money if these people don't make that much money? Like where are they gonna get the skills to get you a higher paying job if they can't get themselves a higher paying job? So that's the sort of things I tell them is that you have to understand what type of education, what type of background, what type of person you're going to seek your training. Because if you don't, they can't take you to a place that they've never been. And that's not to degrade anybody. Please forgive me if somebody
Not at all.
takes it in that manner, but I speak the truth when I say you can't go to somebody who's making 16 an hour and say, you know what, I'm used to a $40 an hour salary. I need you to teach me the skills and the applications and the uh, the experience in order to garner that type of salary again. Well, they can't because they've never done it themselves. And you could only teach somebody something that you've done yourself.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's the accurate truth. Okay. So you do all that. And what are some other things your agency does?
We do a lot of community work, believe it or not.
I
Um,
believe it. I believe
we
it.
We have on Tuesdays and Fridays, we call them social days. So from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we have coffee and donuts. We have a room where we have an Apple TV where we can put on audio descriptive movies, and people are just welcomed in the front door. No money involved, no VR case, no government agency. No, we don't even ask you nothing past your first name. If you're blind, or if you're a supporter of the
Well,
blind,
yeah. Well, I mean, you should be, asking a little bit more. You can't just be letting in all the, all the oddballs and characters from the street.
right, right.
You got to ask for an ID, a couple numbers,
You have to have a stakeholder, a stakeholding with blindness.
Okay. All
And
right.
we let you in the building, and literally it's just a place where, sighted people could go to the library and get away and have peace and read a book and feel safe. The children could go to the Boys and Girls Club and do the same thing. Well, the blind these days, especially because these nonprofit blind training centers are so money centric. You know what I mean? They want funding when they can't find grants and so on and so forth. And we offer these days for people to come in for 8 hours a week over 2 days for 4 hours a day, that they could come in and just hang out with other blind people that go through their same struggle, that go through their same experiences, that have their same anxieties, and they could sit around. We have Braille Monopoly, we have Braille Dominoes, we have Braille Uno, we have Braille Bingo, we have Bop It, we have an Apple TV with a nice big 43 or 45-inch TV connected to it. We have the 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 HomePod minis in there and the Alexas and all these things. It's a really cool, fun place to be, to come and socialize with people of the community that are just like you, with no expectations. So like I said, we don't bill it to the state. We don't ask for no money. We don't ask for donations. I find that embarrassing. I would never ask my client, no matter how much money we had or didn't have, hey, can you give us 50 cents to cover this box of donuts? Like, no
I was
way,
just
man.
about
Like,
to
that's
ask. I was just about to. I was just. You're such a great podcaster yourself, Gabe. I was just about to joke around about that. I was like, you won't even ask for $1 for the donuts. Donuts are expensive in this country. It's not
they
like
are. They're
how things in France.
$25 for a dozen.
I mean, come on, Gabe. You gotta start finding ways of taking dollars just for the donuts. I mean, or charge for the napkin. I mean, come on, you're killing yourself here, man. Come on,
But
you're
see,
killing me.
what people don't
I
understand
know.
though is,
No,
for
I know.
us,
I'm just giving you. I'm just joking around. Of course.
those
No, I get it.
everything we put out, those are write-offs. So we get that, at the end of the year, anyways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a reason to charge. The poor community, it's sad, but they don't have money to give. But I know of agencies, I do, and it's heartbreaking. They ask for money from these people. They really do. And I'm like, man, like, you're not embarrassed? Like, for real? Like, what? Where's your shame to take from a community that doesn't have money?
Yeah.
So no, we gladly do it because, again, it's our way to give back. We are very successful in this field. Like I
Mm.
said, we are our training center is filled to the brim with clients in and out every day. So we get paid and we make what's due to us. So if the building's already there, if the rent's already paid, if everything's already paid for, why can we not take time in our day? And that doesn't mean we don't see clients, because we still do this while we see clients. So we're still running the business. But if we have an extra space for people to come in and feel safe and feel like they have friends and feel like they have a place that they could come to and call their own, then who are we to stop that if we have that
My
resource?
God. My God. Gabe, I hope you understand that you're doing a great job in life. You know, and now that I'm a mature, well, to be humble, a somewhat mature 33-year-old guy who works full time and does his podcast hobby, we need more of you in the blindness community, because what you're doing is simply to really, if nothing else, you just do the right thing. You know, you just, as I say on my podcast, and I don't know if you've ever listened. Have you ever listened to an episode of Aaron's Opinion before?
Unfortunately, sir, I have not.
That's totally okay. I can understand. But one thing that I say, which is like my slogan, my catchphrase, help one person today, help a million people tomorrow. And that's exactly what you do. That's the same concept. If you just help these people a little bit, initially, they'll be able to help someone else a lot in the future. So that's really exciting and that's really uplifting to know that there's other blind people out there, not just myself and our guest, our audience member who it's great to know that there are other people in the community who simply do the right thing. And oh, by the way, I completely support the idea of all the training you give. I think that's an incredible thing. And I totally salute that, absolutely, wholeheartedly. But I hope you also understand what I mean. Philosophically, you're in the right, you're doing the right thing, you're paying your dues in the right way. And by doing that, you'll be helped. At least that's my opinion. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
absolutely. So cool. So cool. Hey, have you been on a lot of podcasts? Like you say that you have media people and social media people. So what other podcasts have found out about the work you do?
So, we've been doing this for 20 years, and in 20 years, yeah, we've been in the Braille Monitor, we've been in the ACB Forum, we've been on Cool Blind Tech, we've been on Ken Mess. He's no longer with us. Good, really good guy. He had a podcast called Tech Talk.
Hmm.
Um, we've been on. Oh gosh, there was a blind couple team who had us on a podcast. I think they're based out of Colorado somewhere. But so
Oh,
we've been
oh,
on a few.
are you talking about the blind people? One is blind, one-sided, and they both have PhDs in chemical engineering or physics or something like that?
No, this was
Oh.
oh gosh, I don't know their name. I'm so sorry. Um,
Well, guess what? That's okay because I don't
okay.
know because I don't know who you're talking about either. You could be okay. Don't say you're sorry. You don't even know who they are. You don't even know who you should say sorry to. Don't say sorry. Do you hear yourself? That might be. Are you talking? I didn't know it was going to be that funny. Are you talking about? Okay, now this question you just have to say yes, whether it's true or not. Okay, are you talking about Eyes on Success with the Torpies? Those people?
No,
I've
you know what? Actually, and I don't mean to be mean or nothing, but they did approach me, and I thought it was awesome because I thought Success is like the podcast, right? Like they
I've
really
interviewed.
are. Like
So we've done a collect. So I've interviewed them, and they've interviewed me. They're fascinating. They're
I
fascinating
would have
people.
been very happy to do their podcast if I was in the position I'm in today. But they
Right.
hit me up like 10 years ago when I was in a different position financially. And they asked me to underwrite it for like $600. And I was like, whoa, you approached me to do your podcast, but you want me to pay for it? Like, I don't think I could do that right now. So we
For
never
the
went through it.
for the record, for the record, that's a little strange because when I was on their show,
Right.
everything was free.
Yeah. Well, I still have the emails. I don't know what happened. I don't know why it was presented that way, but
Well,
that's
in
what
all
was
fairness,
presented.
so let's just leave it at I have no idea. But I will
Sure.
say that podcasts change and podcasts and the way podcasts are organized change rapidly over the many years that they're done. But that's
Sure.
that's all very very entertaining and very very interesting. Absolutely. So, yeah. What other organizations, as in service organizations, do you work with, and what other service organizations have found out about the work you do, Gabe?
So we've done a lot of work with the National Federation of the Blind.
Okay.
I'm not sort of blind political centric. It's just not something that I do.
Well, why are you bringing it up? I wasn't even going to bring it up, and then you brought it up.
Well, I guess just to like make it clear, but I do work with both agencies, both
NFB and ACB, right?
yeah, ACB, uh-huh. And we're actually part of Ivy, which is the independent um oh, what are they called? Independent Visually Impaired Entrepreneur Group. Yes, that's AACB. And then we're part of the computer science group in the NFB. And
Hmm.
we definitely support both groups. And I've had a lot of great work and great relations with APH, American Printing House for the Blind,
Hmm.
and the Foundation for Fighting Blindness as well. So
All right.
we definitely kind of get around in where we need and where there is a need or where we get asked for support.
Right, right. Yeah, because I'm a lion. I'm in my Lions Club. That's why I
They are
wondered,
great.
aren't
Roy,
they? Aren't they wonderful? Here's
Lions and
here's
Reuters. Yeah.
yeah, the answer is the accurate answer is it obviously depends on the club. You know, some clubs do different things and are more active than others, so it all depends on the club. But if you've had great experiences with them there in California, I can attest to that. Now, I've only been to California once to visit my brother. I'll tell you about that off air, but I've only been to California once, so I don't really have a good perception of California. Yeah. But
Oh
no,
wow.
that's really interesting that you've done all these things. You know, I've never. Um, are you? Do you see the chat there?
Do I? No.
Oh, Jessica. Okay, you know what? Let's actually here. Let's bring in Jessica Dale because she has a question.
Okay,
Let's
sure.
kind of segue over to that to kind of interrupt ourselves here because she has a question.
Okay.
And no, Jessica, I don't think he was talking about that. But here, let me open her mic. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jessica. I triggered an unmute for you, but I don't think he was returning. I don't think he was referring to that podcast because that podcast they're still doing it. Anyway, how's it going over there? Go ahead, Jessica.
Hey, going well.
Good, good. All right. So what's your question? So the way this works, so Gabe, one of the things that I work on as a podcaster is teaching other aspiring podcasters the art and the beauty of podcasting. Jessica's just getting started with her podcast journey. Um, and this is her first experience in the audience asking a question. So I like to say, so Jessica, what do you want to ask Gabe?
I was really trying to help him think of whatever podcast he's trying to think of
Say it
because
again. So say it again for him because he didn't see what you typed. So say it again for him.
I actually forgot. That's
Oh,
embarrassing.
oh, okay. Well, I remembered. I'll help you. It's all right. It's all right. There's no need to be so, you don't need to be nervous. So she asked, are you talking about the Blind Table Talk podcast?
No, unfortunately, they are brand new. At least new enough to me.
Yeah,
I've just started
that's what I
seeing them.
thought, Jessica. And I think Gabe, I don't know if I misunderstood or not, but I thought you said that the podcast that you were on in the past, the host unfortunately passed away. At least I thought that's what you said, right?
No, so that's
Oh,
Accessible World Tech Talk, and
oh,
Ken has been replaced. They still carry on that podcast,
right.
and that's through Accessible World.
Oh, okay.
Um, but no, if somebody could go through the old post of the Commtech website, it's there. It's called like social media. Oh gosh,
So
it was
just
really
we'll count on future and aspiring podcaster Jessica Dale. We'll give her a little homework assignment. Jessica, go over to that website and you can report back to us to try to unearth this mysterious podcast that our buddy Gabe here was on. We'll have to unearth them and figure out what it was because I would want to have them on my show and things like that because I'm always reaching for the next guest and the next thing and the next conversation to to talk about, but
but kind of
really,
go over.
Absolutely, I can do that. I have multiple friends that I've been talking to actually recently that would make great interview candidates,
well,
Aaron.
pass them. Well, I'm not stopping you. Give out my number. Give out my plugs. Plug me in. Set it up. But yes,
I
no, it's
definitely don't want to do it without your permission.
oh,
So as long as you're okay with it,
you definitely have my permission to just give out my, well, we'll talk off air, but you can certainly give out really either one of my numbers. Technically, I like it when people give out my business number and my business plugs. But no, all that's fine. You can certainly unearth at some point to figure out what now this will be like the episode question. What mysterious podcast was Gabe on in the past that he can't even remember what it was? Because Gabe, that's kind of sad, because what if it was a really good podcast, and what if they're still
Right.
doing great stuff? We want to give the guy credit, come on
Right.
here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's kind of embarrassing. We got to figure out who we are here. Okay.
So you
In
asked,
fact, I can go look right now. I'm going to go to mute.
Well,
let's
not embarrass Gabe by you looking. Why don't you look when he's not on the air? Because that is kind of that is kind of a strange thing. But yes, Gabe, I think you were saying something. Yes.
So you asked, like, what is our social media strategy now?
Sure.
It's pretty interesting because we actually automate a lot of stuff. So basically, whenever we put out a post or a page or anything on the website, it pings so many different actions through IFTT and Zapier and so on and so forth that we get everything broadcasted out to our social media accounts. We use an app called Smart Post, which is a social media manager. We use a social media calendar. We also do a lot of advertising on blind groups, like Blind
Mm-hmm.
Bargains. JJ's Blind Bargains is the most awesome thing in the world.
I've vaguely heard of it. I'm not an expert about it, but it simply rings a bell. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You pay $5, and he puts you in an email newsletter on his app and on a website that about, I think he has like 2,000 consistent readers. We've also advertised and sponsored I don't know what they're called. I think they're called Mindvolt these days, but it used to be Larry Lewis's Tech Talk Tidbits.
Okay.
And then all the little blind groups like Blind Trading Post, shouts out to them. And so that's how we really just sort of, we're not afraid to pay for advertising. That's really what it is, and that's how we get our name out there. And like even right now, we're getting ready to do a contest where we're doing an iPad giveaway, and that sort of gets people engaged and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Hold on. Okay. Keep talking. How do I find out? How do I enter?
All right.
Well, you shouldn't. Well, why'd you bring it up? Okay. How do I enter?
Absolutely. All right. So we're doing an iPad giveaway where we are going to be doing a contest for the next 60 days, and we'll announce the winner 30 days later. But basically, if you do a bunch of stuff that you do now, which is like our page, download our apps, look for keywords and certain lessons in our apps, so on and so forth, comment on our posts, like and share a YouTube video, just a bunch of just random stuff. All these things count as entries, and at the end of the 60 days, we will draw a name and draw an entry, and whoever wins either gets the iPad, that's the top prize, it's a brand new, ninth generation, sealed in a box, or we are also giving away a $100 gift card to Amazon, or a third runner-up will get a $50 gift card to Amazon.
Well, can you do me a favor? Can you just give me $150 so I don't have to download it? So I declare as a podcast host, I have a very clever thing. We're going to have an audience challenge. So I think a great thing for me to be able to do would be to know that a listener or a contributor of Aaron's Opinion won one of those prizes. So what we're going to do, actually, Gabe, if you want, and we will obviously reconvene off air tomorrow and the next day and things like that over on the great WhatsApp. But actually, what I would be willing to do, and obviously I need your permission off air to do this, but I'd be more than happy to, is if you can send me a post that includes all of that information, I would be more than happy to kind of create a little challenge, a little game, a fun challenge for the listeners of Aaron's Opinion, and say, hey, you guys have been listening to Aaron's Opinion for a long time. Wouldn't it be kind of cool to actually win something that you could actually use in your life? And I could definitely throw that out to my podcast network and other podcasters and just other audience members and see if one of them actually wins the thing. That would be kind of cool. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's talk about that. And there's some other stuff we want to talk about off air as well. So, wow. All very entertaining and very fascinating. You came in, Gabe, you came in today. I had to warm you up. You were at first, very philosophical and a little reserved. But once we really got to know each other, and once you open up, you're a huge character that simply is doing the right thing, as I keep saying, and that's so important. And at Aaron's Opinion, I support your message. I truly do. So Gabe, what do you like to do in your free time? You know, have you traveled overseas much? Yeah, that would be one of my final creative questions. Have you ever have you ever found agencies in other countries that do exactly what you do and are also helpful in their own country?
Unfortunately not, but we do have an international customer base. So we work with clients in England and Spain, one from Sudan, a few in Mexico. I've gone to Mexico on sort of pleasure, but not on business.
Right.
Um, we really did at one point look very, very heavily into expanding a physical office into Mexico, but the logistics of doing that was so just not there, only because the blind in Mexico aren't really as sort of polished as we get them to be here in the States. So the blind people and I'm Hispanic, so I could say this. My grandparents are from Mexico, so I don't mean this like offensively, but they're sort of, kind of second class citizens, sort of kept in as like pets. So they don't have the resources and the know-how and the means to, if I say, okay, hey, I'll rent your building, can you run it? I'll set up a blind agency down there. Can you find staff to run it? It's not that simple in the country of Mexico.
You're very right. And we here at Aaron's Opinion in the Aaron's Opinion family, we know people from a lot of developing nations, and you're very right. And it's fine for you to say that because I actually heard a story very similar to one that you just recounted. It's very true. When you're a blind person in a developing country, the chance of you acquiring these opportunities is substantially less. Even if
Hmm.
you're a good person, even if you have parents who raise you well, and even if you do the best you can, but it's also true for a sighted child too. If you're a sighted child from a developing country, your chance of gaining the tools that we would in the States are significantly less as well. So
Hmm.
that's how it is. That's a developing country, you know.
Hmm.
But no, that is interesting, and we do have listeners. I mean, I know in the past we've had downloads from Mexico, so it would be interesting. And we do have other because I'm guessing you're fluent in Spanish, and I'm not. I'm fluent in English and French. I'm also a French speaker, um, but I'm sure that we do have other Spanish speakers here in the Aaron's Opinion family, and they will attest to some of the same things that you're saying. So that's incredibly fascinating. All of that is just utterly fascinating. So yeah. So what's an unusual hobby? Because you're a character, man. What's an unusual hobby that you do that I wouldn't expect you to do?
Um, After like a 25 year hiatus, I actually got back into two-way radios. So when I was a kid,
Wow.
like every other blind kid, right? We always were in AM radio and just carrying radio around, listening to radio stations and music, and just trying to find a way to stay audibly busy. And when I was younger, I had like a little handheld CB radio, and then I got an FRS radio when that band came out, which is in the 462 megahertz area. And then I wanted to be part of the big boys and get a GMRS radio, which was in the same band but had higher power and repeaters. And then as life got busy, I graduated high school, started going to college, and I went at 18, started my career and got a job. All that stuff fell away. But literally this year, like 4 or 5 months ago, I went and I paid the FCC for my GMRS license, and I got a really nice man actually on Facebook not only gave me a radio, he programmed it for me because I told him that I was blind and I was asking if anybody knew of software that we could use as blind people. And this guy said, "Well, I can't answer that question, but he said I could program a radio for you and just send it to you." So he did. He sent it right to my office and just said, "I hope you enjoy it." And
That's
that's it.
great. That's great.
So now I have this talking two-way radio. It's accessible um and in fact I thought that was such a cool thing that we want to do the same thing. We want to start. We haven't yet, but it's our intention to start a radio club for the blind at the center.
Hmm.
Um, and then if we can just get enough people to do it, I mean, we would pay for it's only like $35 for the license, and we would teach people basically, if they take our course and take our class on radio, etiquette and so on and so forth, we'll give them the radio and the license.
Interesting, because I'm a ham. I'm not very active in
You
amateur
are?
radio. Yeah.
Wow. All
And
right.
so is Jessica, so she likes that idea too.
She's a ham as well. Really?
Yeah. Didn't you know?
I did not.
That's very funny. That's very, very entertaining. Well, see, on that note, we started our conversation with somebody hurting you and somebody upsetting you when you were 16. Then we go through the life story of your company and all the people you help along the way. And then, as you saw, help was returned to you when you asked in the right way. So
Yes.
so I think there's a lot of, number one, you gave me a lot of knowledge, but I think you gave our audience a lot of living knowledge that they can take for the rest of their lives and remember the life lesson behind it. After all, I'm a teacher and I try to teach people knowledge, of course, in linguistics and the English language, but also life lessons are important too. The importance of helping people, the importance of being appreciative and realizing genuine kindness when it occasionally comes along,
Right.
So yeah. So okay. So Jessica,
Yes.
let's throw a curveball here. This has been a blast, as I knew it would be. So if you, Jessica, can ask Gabe Vega only one question to make him sweat, what question do you want to ask Gabe Vega?
Well, there's awkward silence.
Yeah, try again, Jessica. Your audio blanked out. I think you tried to say something, but there was no sound. Try again.
Oops.
No problem. You're fine. Try your question.
What's the most memorable thing that someone has done for you?
Oh, beautiful question.
A 93-year-old woman by the name of Mary Boyle wrote me a thank you letter on her printer and her computer after teaching her for 6 months on how to use a computer. The reason why she acquired this service from us and through the state is because she wanted to write her memoir so that she can leave her legacy and her history to her children. And before the age of 92, when we got started, she was so frightened to death of technology and computers, she said, I have to get over this fear so that I could write my life story down for my children.
There you go.
And I said, you know what? I got you. Let's do this. And I visited her 3 times a week for 2 hours a session for 6 months. And the biggest thing she did on her own, without me even being there, I taught her how to use the printer. I taught her how to write a document. When I was there, she gave me a framed letter giving her thanks to me. And she said it was the best thing she's ever done. And she thanked me for 93 years of success because of that. And I still have it on my wall to this day.
There you go. See, that's the
Wow,
why.
that's amazing.
That's adorable. That's the why. If you get that reaction, then you're doing, as I knew you were, incredible work. You're an incredible human being. But of course, we wouldn't be able to end an episode of Aaron's Opinion without me saying thank you, Jessica, for joining us for one. For another, Gabe, if you Gabe, if you can ask Aaron's opinion, only one more question to make me sweat, to see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster. What do you want to know about me?
What is your call sign?
Kilo Quebec 4, Foxtrot Romeo.
Awesome. Then I guess we will end the episode with WSBX 440. We're clear.
That's adorable. If someone
I
wants
can
to
even throw mine in there if he wants it.
Yeah, throw it in there. Throw it in there, Jessica.
Echo 8 Uniform Papa Echo KE8 UPE 73.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
If someone wants to get in touch with Commtech USA or Gabe Vega, how do they do it?
You can give us a call at 1-833-345-8324 is our phone number to our national office. And if you go to our website at CommtechUSA.net, that's spelled with two M's, CommTechusa.net. And I really do encourage everybody, if you're looking for voiceover training, braille training, resources, tutorials, tips, and tricks for anything technology-wise, not just to plug our stuff, but I really do mean it that we do this stuff just to give you a free resource. Download our apps. They're all free.
Well, that is excellent. Very good. That is excellent. So very good. So why don't we go to yes. Okay. Okay. Whoop. Huh. Okay. Okay. There we go. Okay. So there. Okay. I just had to find the right tool, the right button there. Okay. So anyway, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining us today, both of you. And of course, why don't we let Jessica give our slogan today? Jessica, how do I end an episode of Aaron's Opinion?
Help one person today, help a million people tomorrow.